I didn't think much of the rules when I first saw them. That was probably my first mistake. Most rules at remote places sound strange when you are new. That is what I told myself. People who live alone in the mountains get particular about things. They label light switches. They write notes about which drawer sticks and which outlet trips the breaker. They leave reminders about closing windows because the wind comes in sideways. They make systems because there is no one nearby to fix things when a small mistake turns into a real problem. That made sense to me. At least, it made sense at first. My brother Caleb and I took the job because we needed the money. There is no better way to say it. I was 32, recently laid off from a warehouse outside Denver, and Caleb was 28, working short shifts at an auto parts store that kept cutting his hours. Our mother had been sick that year, not dying, but sick enough that bills started arriving faster than we could open them. We had both been helping where we could. When Caleb called and told me he knew about a winter caretaker job in the Rockies, I thought he was joking. "It's 6 weeks," he said. "Maybe 8 if they get more snow. 2 people. Room and board. Mostly sitting around." "Where?" "Copperline Station." I had never heard of it. He said it was an old ranger station and public cabin near the northern edge of a national park. It had been used in the summer for trail permits, backcountry check-ins, and volunteer crews. In the winter, the road closed past mile marker 41, and almost nobody went up there except park staff, snow survey crews, and the occasional lost idiot who thought a four-wheel drive meant the laws of weather did not apply to them. The park used to keep a full-time winter ranger there, but budget cuts and a couple of bad seasons changed that. Now they hired seasonal caretakers to keep the station from freezing, report snow levels, check trail cameras, monitor the emergency radio, and keep the building ready in case rescue crews needed it. The pay was not great, but it was steady. There was a stipend for food. There was heat if we kept the generator alive. We would not have cell service most days, but there was a satellite phone for emergencies and a landline that sometimes worked. "You hate people," Caleb said. "This is perfect for you." "I don't hate people." "You hate people at work." That was harder to argue with. Caleb got the leave from a man named Warren Bell, who used to come into the auto parts store. Warren had been a ranger for almost 30 years before retiring. He knew someone in the park office who still needed 2 caretakers after the first pair quit. That should have been the first warning. I asked Caleb why they quit. He said, "One of them had a family thing." "What about the other one?" He paused just long enough for me to notice. Then he said, "Probably also had a family thing." I needed the money badly enough to pretend that was good enough. We drove up there in Caleb's truck on a gray Monday afternoon in November. The kind of afternoon where the sky looks low enough to scrape the treetops. The road climbed for nearly 2 hours after we left the last real town. There was a gas station at the bottom, then a closed diner with plywood over one window, then nothing but forest and rock and the thin black road twisting higher into the mountains. The snow started as a light dusting, then became heavier as we climbed. Not a storm, exactly, but steady enough that Caleb kept both hands on the wheel and stopped making jokes. Copperline Station sat 3 miles beyond the winter gate. A park maintenance guy met us at the gate with a snowcat and let us in. His name was Pete. He was in his 50s, with a face that looked permanently windburned and the tired patience of someone who had explained the same thing too many times. The station was bigger than I expected. It was not just a cabin. It was a long, low log building with a stone chimney, a small public room in front, an office behind it, a kitchen, a radio room, 2 bedrooms, a storage room, and a narrow hall that led to an older section they called the bunk wing. There was also a detached shed, a fuel tank, a woodpile under a leaning roof, and a small garage that held a snowmobile we were not supposed to use unless told. The building looked peaceful in the snow. Almost pretty. Dark logs, green shutters, yellow porch light, smoke lifting from the chimney because Pete had come early and started the stove. It did not look haunted. I know how stupid that sounds, but it is true. Places do not look wrong right away. Not usually. They look normal until something happens. Then, after that, every detail seems like it was warning you. Pete gave us the tour. He showed us the generator shed and how to switch to backup. He showed us the breaker panel, the propane valves, the emergency food shelves, the first aid locker, the weather station screen, and the old radio system with its green display and heavy microphone. You log weather at 6, noon and 6, Pete said. Radio check at 7 and 11. Keep the stove going but don't let it cook you out. Pipes freeze in the bunk wing first, so leave those doors open during the day and closed at night. Cameras update every 15 minutes if the signal's good. Sometimes it isn't. There were 6 camera feeds on an old monitor in the office. Camera 1 showed the front porch and the snow-covered road. Camera 2 showed the generator shed. Camera 3 showed the rear path to the woodpile. Camera 4 showed the east tree line, where the forest began maybe 40 yards from the station. Camera 5 showed the gate 3 miles down, though Pete said that one froze or went black half the time. Camera 6 showed the inside of the public room. I asked why there was a camera inside. Pete looked at the monitor for a second too long. People break in sometimes, he said. Up here? You'd be surprised. That was one of those answers people give when they are not lying exactly, but they are leaving out the part you would actually want to know. The public room had old maps on the walls, a counter where visitors must have signed in during the summer, a rack of outdated brochures, and a square wooden table with 4 chairs around it. There was a guest book on the counter, though the station was closed to the public for the season. Don't bother with that, Pete said when he saw me looking at it. Nobody signs in after October. Then, like he had remembered something unpleasant, he added, if someone does come, don't invite them in unless it's a real emergency. You're not running a lodge. The bedroom Caleb and I were supposed to use had 2 narrow beds, 1 dresser, a small heater, and a window that looked out toward the woodpile. Caleb claimed the bed nearest the heater. I let him. I have always slept better cold. Room 3 was across the hall. Pete opened that door last. It was a small bedroom with 1 bed, a dresser, a lamp, and a covered mirror. The cover was just an old towel draped over it. The lamp was already on. Leave this on, Pete said. All the time? Caleb asked. From sundown to sunup. Why? Pete looked annoyed, but not with Caleb. More like he was annoyed at the question itself. Old wiring, he said. Circuit gets touchy if it cools down. Just leave it on. Caleb raised his eyebrows at me behind Pete's back. I did not laugh. Something about that room bothered me, though at the time I could not say what. It was just a room. A bed, a dresser, a lamp. The air inside felt a few degrees colder than the hall, but old buildings have drafts. The towel over the mirror looked childish, but I had known people who covered mirrors in cabins so reflected light would not wake them up. There was nothing obviously wrong. That was the point. Pete finished the tour in the office. On the desk, next to the weather log and radio schedule, he placed a blue binder with a cracked plastic cover. Everything you need is in there, he said. Then he reached into his coat and took out a folded sheet of yellow legal paper. This too. Caleb took it. What is it? Pete did not answer right away. He walked to the office door, looked down the hall toward room 3, then lowered his voice. Warren told you about the rules? Caleb looked at me. No, I said. Pete sighed through his nose. Of course he didn't. That was when I should have refused the job. I can say that now. At the time, standing in that warm office with snow tapping against the window and my bank account nearly empty, it felt too late to be scared by a piece of paper. Pete unfolded it and set it on the desk. The handwriting was neat, all capital letters, written with a black marker. At the top it said, Winter Caretaker Rules. Both caretakers read, Do not remove from office. Under that, there were 7 rules. Pete watched our faces while we read them. 1. Lock all 3 outside doors by 6 p.m. If any door has snow packed against it from the inside, do not clear it after dark. 2. Answer the radio only during the 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. checks. If a caller uses your full name, do not transmit. 3. Keep 4 chairs at the public room table. If you see 5, move the extra chair to the mudroom without speaking. 4. Room 3 lamp stays on from dusk until dawn. If it goes out, both caretakers go together. Turn it on. Do not look at the mirror. 5. Camera 4 updates every 15 minutes. If it shows either caretaker outside, both caretakers sit on the office floor until the next update. 6. If you hear knocking from the crawlspace hatch, knock back once and leave the kitchen. Do not ask who is there. 7. The guest book is for visitors. If a new name appears after 6 p.m., do not read the line below it. Tear out the page and burn it before sunrise. I remember the exact silence after we finished reading. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was not. The generator hummed. The stove popped in the next room. Caleb made a small sound in his throat like he was trying not to laugh. Pete stood there with both hands on his belt, looking tired. Finally Caleb said, Is this a joke they do for new people? No. Because it's pretty good. Pete did not smile. I asked, What happens if we don't follow them? He looked at the paper, not at me. Things get harder. That was all he said. I asked who wrote the rules. Rangers before me. Some of them are older than I am. What do they mean? They mean what they say. Caleb leaned back against the desk. So if a chair appears, we just move it? Yes. And if the radio says my full name, I ignore it? Yes. And if a new person signs the guest book even though no one is here, we burn the page. Pete looked at him. You burn it before sunrise. Caleb stopped smiling a little. Pete left before dark. He said he wanted to make the gate before the snow got worse. He gave us the satellite phone number for dispatch, his own number, and Warren's number. He reminded us again that the road was closed to public vehicles, that we were not to hike alone, and that we should write everything in the log, even things that seemed stupid. Then he stood on the porch with his hood up and looked at us like he wanted to say more. Instead, he said, First few nights are always the worst. Why? I asked. He shrugged. Because you listen too hard. Then he climbed into the snowcat and drove away down the road, the engine fading until the mountains swallowed it. Caleb and I stood in the doorway watching the red taillights disappear between the trees. Well, Caleb said, Mom always wanted us to spend more time together. I laughed because he did. It felt good to laugh. It made the place smaller. At 5:45, we did our first lockup. There were 3 outside doors. Front porch, kitchen side door, and rear mudroom door. We checked them all, slid the bolts, and marked it in the log like Pete had shown us. At 6 I wrote the weather. Temperature, 19 degrees. Wind light. Snow steady. Visibility, maybe half a mile. Caleb made boxed macaroni and cheese on the propane stove, and we ate in the public room at the square table with 4 chairs. The room had a museum smell, old paper and dust and wood smoke. The camera in the corner had a small red light. "Think they watched that?" Caleb asked. "Who?" "Dispatch." "Pete." "Whoever. Probably records to the system." He stared at the camera and lifted his fork in a little salute. Nothing happened. At 7, we did the radio check? I sat at the desk and pressed the microphone button the way Pete had shown us. "Copperline station to dispatch. Radio check?" Static. Then a woman's voice replied, clear but distant. "Dispatch to Copperline, reading you." "Two caretakers on site?" I said. "Affirmative. Evan Mercer and Caleb Mercer on site. Weather logged. No issues. Copy. Next check at 2300. Stay warm." That was it. A normal exchange. After that, we settled into the first night. Caleb played games on his phone even though there was no service. I read through the blue binder. Most of it was boring. Generator maintenance. Snow load warnings. Emergency rescue procedures. Instructions for dealing with hypothermia. A map of winter trail closures. A page about bears that had been crossed out and replaced with one about people trying to take selfies with elk. The rules were not in the binder. Only on the yellow paper. I remember thinking that meant they were unofficial. A prank. Something passed down because remote workers get bored and start making legends out of weird noises. I told myself that. Around 9:30, the wind picked up. The station creaked in ways old buildings do. Logs shifting. Pipes ticking. Snow brushing against glass. Once or twice there was a dull thump from the roof as snow slid down. Caleb fell asleep early in the chair beside the stove. I stayed in the office because I had always been the one who felt responsible. It was not that Caleb was irresponsible. He just had a way of assuming things would work out. I had a way of assuming they would not unless I made them. At 10:45, I woke him for the 11 o'clock radio check. He came in rubbing his face. "Anything exciting?" The stove popped once. "Good. Write that down." I took the microphone. "Copperline station to dispatch. Radio check?" Static. Then dispatch answered. Same woman. "Dispatch to Copperline, reading you." "No issues," I said. "Snow continuing. Generator normal." "Copy. Next check at 1900 tomorrow." I hung up the mic. Caleb yawned. "That's it. That's it." Then the radio crackled again. Not loud. Just enough that both of us looked at it. The green display did not change. No channel indicator. No signal light. A voice came through the speaker under the static. "Evan?" It was quiet. Almost buried. Caleb looked at me. I did not touch the mic. The voice came again. "Evan Mercer?" Caleb's mouth opened slightly. The rule came back to me before I had time to decide whether I believed in it. If a caller uses your full name, do not transmit. The radio hissed. Then the woman from dispatch came back, sharp and normal. "Copperline, did you transmit again?" I stared at the microphone. Caleb whispered, "Don't." I pressed nothing. Dispatch said, "Copperline, confirm last transmission." I still did not answer. The static faded. The radio went dead. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then Caleb said, "Could have been another channel. Using my name?" He rubbed his arms. "Maybe Pete messing with us." I wanted that to be true. I wanted it so badly that I let it become true for the rest of the night. "Yeah," I said. "Probably Pete." We did not call him. We did not write it in the log. We just went to bed and pretended the first rule had not already been tested. I slept badly. That became normal. The first few days were quiet enough that we started to relax. That is how places like Copperline get you. They scare you once, then act normal. They let routine cover the crack. Our days had a rhythm. Wake before 8. Check the stove. Make coffee. Log the morning temperature even though the official weather logs were 6, noon, and 6. Walk the inside of the building and listen for pipes. Sweep snow from the front steps. Check the fuel gauge. Check the camera feeds. Inventory firewood. Eat whatever we could make from shelf-stable food. Read old paperbacks from the supply shelf. Play cards. Do the 6 o'clock lockup. Radio check. Wait. The station was quiet, but not silent. The generator never stopped humming unless we shut it down for maintenance. The refrigerator clicked. The wind moved in the chimney. The old radio gave soft pops of static even when no one was transmitting. The building made small noises that took time to learn. By the 4th day, I could tell the difference between the rear door shifting in its frame and the pantry shelf settling. I could tell when Caleb was walking in the hall because his right boot dragged slightly from an old ankle injury. I knew the soft clack of the bathroom heater. I knew the way the public room camera made a tiny mechanical tick when it adjusted. That is why, on the 5th night, I noticed the chair. We had just finished dinner. Canned chili over instant rice. Caleb complained about it, and then ate 2 bowls. I washed the pot while he checked the office monitor. At 6, we had locked the doors. At 7, we had done the radio check. Dispatch had answered normally, and nothing else had come through. I was drying my hands when Caleb called from the public room. Evan. His voice was flat enough that I turned off the faucet. He stood by the square table. There were 5 chairs around it. Not 4. 5. 4 of them were the ones that had been there since we arrived. Heavy wooden chairs with scratched seats and curved backs. The 5th was different. Narrower. Older. Painted white once, though most of the paint had worn away. It sat on the far side of the table, tucked in neatly like someone had just stood up from dinner. I looked toward the mudroom. The rules said to move the extra chair there. The problem was that I had never seen that chair before. Was it in the bunk wing? Caleb asked. I don't know. You brought it in? No. He stared at it. I didn't either. The room felt colder around the table. I know how that sounds. I do not mean there was a ghostly chill or anything dramatic. I mean the warmth from the stove seemed to stop at the edge of that room, as if the table sat in a pocket of old air. Caleb stepped closer. Don't, I said. He froze. The rule did not say not to touch it. It said move it without speaking. But the fact that Caleb had been about to reach for the back of the chair made me suddenly afraid of what might happen if he looked at the seat too long. I pointed toward the mudroom. He nodded. We each took a side of the chair. It was cold. Not winter cold. Not like it had been outside. It was cold like something pulled from deep shade in a basement. The wood felt damp through my fingers. We carried it to the mudroom. Neither of us spoke. As we passed the office, the radio gave one quick burst of static. Caleb almost dropped his side. I tightened my grip and kept walking. We put the chair in the mudroom beside the boot rack. The moment we let go, the lights flickered. Only once. Then the station went back to normal. We walked to the office and sat there for a while, watching the camera feeds. Camera 6 showed the public room. 4 chairs around the table. No 5th. Caleb whispered. I hate that camera. I did too. In the morning, The white chair was gone. Not moved. Gone. We checked the mudroom. We checked the public room. We checked the bunk wing. We even checked outside, though there were no tracks by any door except ours from the morning sweep. The snow around the building was clean and smooth. Caleb wanted to call Pete. I did not. I cannot fully explain why. Part of it was embarrassment. I could already hear myself saying, "A chair appeared and disappeared," and then hearing the silence on the other end. Part of it was the money. I was afraid if we sounded unstable, they would pull us out and replace us. But the real reason was simpler. I was afraid Pete would not be surprised. So I wrote it in the log, but not exactly. 2030 hours. Public room chair count incorrect. Corrected per winter instructions. No further issues. Caleb watched me write it. That's one way to put it, he said. You want to write magic chair? No. Then there. He did not argue. For 2 more nights, nothing happened. That was the worst part in some ways. Fear had nowhere to go. We could not keep screaming forever, not when the lights stayed on and the coffee brewed and the radio check came through at exactly 7 and 11. The station kept asking us to behave like employees. So we did. By the second week, a rail storm moved in. Dispatch warned us at the 7 o'clock check that the road would be impassable for at least 3 days. Pete called earlier on the landline to tell us to secure the woodpile cover and check the generator vents every morning. Don't go farther than the shed, he said. We know, I said. And don't let Caleb talk you into using the snowmobile. I glanced at my brother, who was eating crackers from the box over the sink. I won't. Good. Pete was quiet for a second. Then he asked, Rules been clear? It was such a strange way to ask. Not. Any problems? Not. Anything happen? Rules been clear? I said. We had the radio thing the first night. Pete breathed out slowly. Full name? Mine. You answer? No. Good. I waited for him to say more. He did not. We also had the chair, I said. How many? 1 extra. You moved it? Yes. Good. The line crackled. I asked, Pete, what are these rules really for? You got enough food? Yes. Fuel? Yes. Then follow them. Are we in danger? He did not answer right away. Then he said, Everybody up there is in danger if they start thinking the rules are suggestions. The line clicked. He had hung up. I stood there holding the phone until the dial tone turned into a long flat sound. That night, the storm hit hard. Snow blew against the windows so thickly that the glass looked painted white. The front porch light became a blurry yellow circle. The wind pressed around the building and found every crack. The station groaned under it. We stayed mostly in the office because it had the monitor and radio. Caleb cleaned the same pocket knife for an hour. I read the weather log from previous years. That log should have comforted me. It was full of ordinary notes. Snow depth 18 inches. Generator oil changed. Fox tracks near shed. Hikers turned back at lower gate. But every so often, there were lines that felt different. Chair corrected 2115. C4 held until update. No movement. Room 3 lamp failure. Resolved. Guest page removed. No one had explained those entries. No one had needed to. The people writing them had known exactly what they meant. Around 10:30, Caleb said he was going to make coffee. I kept reading. A few minutes later, he came back without coffee. His face was pale. There's knocking, he said. I looked toward the kitchen. At first, all I heard was wind. Then came 3 soft knocks. Not from the door. From below. The crawlspace hatch was in the kitchen floor, partly hidden under a rubber mat near the pantry shelves. Pete had shown it to us on the first day and told us not to go down there unless a pipe burst. It opened into a shallow dirt crawlspace under the older half of the station. Knock. 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 The sound was polite. That made it worse. Caleb whispered. Could be pipes. Knock. 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 I stood up. The rule came to me exactly. If you hear knocking from the crawlspace hatch, knock back once and leave the kitchen. Do not ask who is there. We walked to the kitchen together. The floorboards were cold through my socks. The knocking came again as we stepped in. 3 soft taps from under the mat. Caleb looked at me. I crouched and pulled the mat back just enough to see the square outline of the hatch. It had an iron ring handle and old hinges. The wood rose slightly with the next knock. Not much. Just enough to show pressure from below. I made a fist and knocked once on the hatch. The knocking stopped. Caleb and I left the kitchen. We stood in the public room, facing the dark kitchen doorway, waiting for something else. Nothing came. After maybe 5 minutes, Caleb said, I almost asked? I know. I had it in my mouth. What? Hello? His voice cracked a little when he said it. I wanted to tell him that was normal. That anyone would have done the same. If something knocks, you answer. That is basic human behavior. It is almost automatic. Something taps from under the floor, and your mind reaches for the shape of a person. Hello? Who's there? Do you need help? The rules were not hard because they were complicated. They were hard because they told us not to do ordinary things. In the morning, I checked the crawlspace hatch. It was closed. The mat was where I had left it. There were no marks on the wood. No signs of pressure. No damp handprints. No scratches. I wrote it in the log. 2,240 hours. Crawlspace knocking. Responded per Rule 6. No further issues. Then I underlined Rule 6 on the yellow paper. Caleb saw me do it. Maybe underline all of them, he said. After that, we took the rules seriously. Not completely, as it turned out. But seriously enough that we might have made it if Copperline had not started using us against each other. That was what it did. I do not know if it is the right word. I do not know if there was one thing at Copperline or many. I do not know if the building itself was wrong, or the forest, or the mountain, or some part of time that had gone thin there. I only know that the first incidents felt random. The radio used my name. A chair appeared. Something knocked. Then it started paying attention. On the 9th night, room 3 went dark. We noticed because the hallway changed. The station had very few lights at night. We kept the office lamp on, the stove light, and the lamp in room 3. That lamp threw a warm line across the floor under the door. It became part of the place, one of those background details you stop noticing until it disappears. Caleb was brushing his teeth in the bathroom when he called out, "Evan?" I came into the hall. The line under room 3 was gone. The door was closed. It had been open earlier. I was almost sure of that. We usually left it cracked so we could see the lamp from the hall. Caleb stood with the toothbrush still in his hand. "Power?" he whispered. The bathroom light was on. So was the office. Not power. The rules said both caretakers go together. Turn it on. Do not look at the mirror. I went to the office and grabbed a flashlight, then came back. Caleb rinsed his mouth quickly and followed me. We stood outside room 3. The air under the door smelled stale. Not rotten, not moldy. More like a room that had been shut for years. You ready? I asked. No. I opened the door. The flashlight beam hit the floor first. That was deliberate. I kept it low. I had no intention of looking at the covered mirror on the dresser. The room was darker than it should have been. The hallway light did not seem to enter it properly. The bed sat against the far wall, blanket pulled tight. The lamp was on the small table beside it, switch facing the door. I stepped in. The boards felt soft under my feet. Caleb stayed right behind me. I could hear his breathing. I kept my eyes on the lamp. The towel over the mirror hung to my left. I could see the edge of it in my side vision. It moved slightly, though there was no draft. I reached the lamp. For 1 second, I could not make my hand move. There was a shape on the bed. Not a person. I told myself it was not a person. It was under the blanket. A long raised shape, as if someone had been lying there, and the blanket had settled over them. The head end was turned toward the wall. The feet end pointed toward me. The rule did not mention the bed. It said turn on the lamp. Do not look at the mirror. So I looked at the lamp. My hand found the switch. Click. The room filled with warm light. The shape under the blanket was gone. Not moved. Gone flat. The bed was smooth. Caleb made a small sound behind me. What? I whispered. Nothing. We backed out. I kept my eyes on the floor. As I pulled the door closed, I heard something behind the towel. A breath. Or fabric sliding. Or my own pulse in my ears. I did not look. Afterward, Caleb sat on his bed with the bathroom light on and told me what he had seen. When the lamp came on, he had looked at the bed. Only for a second. He saw the shape go flat. But before it did, he said the blanket turned its head toward him. I told him that did not make sense. He said, I know. We did not sleep much. The next morning, the mirror in room 3 was still covered. The lamp was still on. The bed was smooth. Nothing looked disturbed. I called Pete. The landline rang 6 times before he answered. When I told him about room 3, he asked the same questions in the same tired voice. Both of you went? Yes. You turned the lamp on? Yes. Either of you look at the mirror? No. He paused. No, I said again. We didn't. Good. What is with the mirror? Keep it covered. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I nearly yelled at him then. I wanted to. The anger came up fast because it was easier than fear. Instead, I asked, did the other caretakers quit because of this? Pete was quiet. Then he said, the other caretakers didn't quit together. I waited. He continued, one came down. One didn't. I looked through the office doorway at Caleb, who was sitting at the public table eating cereal straight from the box. What does that mean? It means don't let each other out of sight after dark. You didn't tell us that. I'm telling you now. The line crackled. Pete. Yeah. How long do we have to stay? He sighed. Storm has the road buried. Earliest I can get up is 4 days if weather breaks. Maybe 5. And if we want out? Follow the rules until then. The line went dead. When I told Caleb, he did not joke. That scared me more than anything. My brother had always joked when things were bad. At our father's funeral, when I was 19 and he was 15, Caleb leaned over during the service and whispered that Dad would have hated the organ music. I almost laughed in the pew. Later I hated him for it, then loved him for it, then realized it was the only way he knew to keep breathing. At Copperline, after Pete told us one caretaker had not come down, Caleb just nodded. Okay, he said. That was all. The storm pinned us in for 3 more days. Snow piled against the building until the lower half of the windows vanished behind white. Every morning, we had to dig out the generator vents and clear the front steps. We tied ropes from the back door to the shed so we would not lose direction in the blowing snow. We never went out alone. We never went out after dusk. Inside, we followed the rules with careful obedience. At 6, lock all doors. At 7, radio check. 4 chairs at the table. Room 3 lamp on. Camera 4 every 15 minutes. Knock back once. Guest book untouched. A routine formed around the fear. Caleb and I checked the camera monitor so often that the images began to feel more real than the building around us. Front porch. Generator shed. Woodpile. East tree line. Gate. Public room. 6 small windows into 6 small pieces of the world. Camera 4 became the one I hated most. The east tree line looked harmless during the day. Lodgepole pines, snow-heavy branches, a few dark spaces between trunks. At night, the infrared made everything pale and flat. The trees looked white. The shadows looked black. Sometimes snowflakes passed close to the lens and became bright streaks. It updated every 15 minutes. Not smoothly. The image froze, then clicked to the next still frame. 8 o'clock, 8:15. 8:30, 8:45. I found myself waiting for each change with a tightness in my chest. Nothing happened on camera 4 for a long time. Then, on the 12th night, it showed Caleb outside. At first, I did not understand what I was seeing. The image had just updated from 10 to 10:15. Caleb and I were in the office. He was sitting in the extra chair near the file cabinet, reading an old magazine. I was at the desk, writing down the fuel estimate. The monitor clicked. Camera 4 changed. There was a man standing at the east tree line. He wore Caleb's red flannel jacket. He stood with his back to the camera, facing the trees. I looked at Caleb. He was still in the chair, wearing that same red flannel jacket. He saw my face and turned to the monitor. For a second, either of us moved. Then the rule hit us both. If it shows either caretaker outside, both caretakers sit on the office floor until the next update. Floor, I said. Caleb dropped the magazine. We sat on the office floor with our backs against the desk. I could still see the monitor from where I was sitting, though I tried not to look. The figure on camera 4 did not move. The timestamp said 22:15. Next update at 22:30. 15 minutes is not long unless you are waiting for a frozen image to change. The station seemed to grow around us. Every small sound became separate. Wind at the front. Stove pop. Pipe tick. Radio hiss. Caleb breathing beside me. My own heartbeat in my throat. At 10:19, something tapped on the office window. Not hard. Just one tap. The window was behind us. Caleb turned his head slightly. I grabbed his sleeve. Don't. He faced forward again. At 10:21, the tap came again. Then another. Then another. Not random. A rhythm. Shave and a haircut. I knew it from childhood. Dad used to knock that pattern on our bedroom door before coming in. Tap, 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 tap. Caleb closed his eyes. The final 2 taps did not come. That was somehow worse. At 10:24, the radio clicked. No static first. Just the click of an open line. Then Caleb's voice came through the speaker. Ev, come on! The real Caleb stiffened beside me. The voice on the radio sounded close, breathless, annoyed. Ev, I'm freezing. Open the door. The rule said if a caller used your full name, do not transmit. It had not used my full name. That made the temptation worse. The real Caleb whispered. That's not me. I know. Evan, please, the radio said. This time it used my first name only. The voice was perfect. Not just similar. Perfect. It had Caleb's tone when he was trying not to panic. It had the small roughness in his throat from years of smoking and quitting and smoking again. Door's stuck, it said. I went out to check the shed and the door's stuck. Just open it. The real Caleb put both hands over his ears. I stared at the timestamp. 22:26. 4 minutes. The office window tapped again. Tap, 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 tap. The radio whispered, Don't leave me out here. At 10:29, the station went quiet. No wind. No pipe ticks. Even the generator seemed far away. Then, from the hall, our mother's voice said, Boys? Caleb made a sound I had never heard from him. Small. Broken. Our mother was alive then. She was in Denver, probably watching TV under a blanket with her pill organizer on the coffee table. She was not in the hall at Copperline Station. She could not be. But she sounded tired. She sounded like she had when she called from the hospital and tried to pretend she was not scared. Boys? She said again. I can't find the light. Caleb started to get up. I threw my arm across his chest and shoved him back down. He fought me for half a second. Not hard, but enough. Don't, I whispered. His eyes were wet. He stared toward the office doorway. The monitor clicked. Camera 4 updated. The figure was gone. The trees stood empty. The timestamp read 22:30. Sound returned to the station all at once. Wind slammed the wall. The generator hummed loudly. The radio gave a soft burst of static and went dead. I let go of Caleb. He did not move. Neither did I. We stayed on the floor until my legs went numb. The next morning, we checked the snow outside camera 4. There were no footprints at the east tree line. Not one. The snow between the station and the trees was smooth except for wind ripples. Caleb stood beside me in the white daylight, looking out over the empty meadow. That was my jacket, he said. I know. I was wearing it. I know. He zipped the jacket up to his chin like he was suddenly cold. After that, Caleb changed. Not all at once. Just enough that I noticed. He stopped wandering around the building by himself. He stopped making fun of the rules. He stopped sleeping without a lamp on. He kept his pocket knife in his hand when we watched the monitor, though I told him a knife would not help against a radio voice or an extra chair. He said, It helps against me doing something stupid. I understood that. We had 2 days left before Pete thought he might be able to come up. The storm had weakened, but the road was still buried. Dispatch said maintenance crews were working lower down. They told us to stay put and conserve fuel. Stay put. As if that was easy. The next incident was the guest book. I hated that one most because it happened in plain sight. It was the 14th night. The storm had stopped, and the world outside was bright under moonlight. Everything was blue and white. The station felt exposed without the storm around it. Like the noise had been a blanket, and now we could hear too far. At 6 we locked the doors. At 7, radio check. At 8 Caleb and I played cards in the public room. We had moved the table closer to the stove, but we kept exactly 4 chairs around it. 1 for me, 1 for Caleb, and 2 empty across from us. I did not like the empty chairs, but I liked moving chairs even less. The guest book sat on the front counter near the brochure rack. It was an old leather-bound thing with yellow pages and a Park Service pen attached by a chain. I had not opened it since the first day. Around 8:40, Caleb got up to use the bathroom. "Door open," I said. He rolled his eyes, but left the bathroom door cracked. That had become another unofficial rule. We did not close interior doors all the way after dark unless the yellow paper required it. While he was gone, I shuffled the cards. The public room camera ticked. The stove popped. Then the pen on the guest book moved. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. At first, I thought the chain had slipped. The pen rolled slightly, then stopped. I stared at it. The pen lifted. Not high. Just enough for the tip to touch the page. It began to write. My body did not react right away. That is something people do not understand about fear. You think you will jump or run. Sometimes you just sit there, watching, because the thing happening is too wrong to fit into any response you have. The pen moved across the page. Slow. Careful. I could hear the scratch of it over the fire. Caleb came back from the bathroom and stopped in the hall. "What is it?" he asked. I raised one hand without looking away. The pen finished. It dropped to the counter. The chain swung once. Then everything was still. Caleb came beside me. On the open page of the guest book, a new name had been written in blue ink. Warren Bell. Under the name, there was another line. A comment line. I did not read it. I wanted to. That sounds insane, but I did. The name was bad enough. Warren Bell was the old ranger who had helped Caleb get the job. He was the one who had not told us about the rules. Seeing his name written by nothing in the empty station made my stomach go cold. But the line below it pulled at my eyes. It was not like normal curiosity. It felt physical. Like when someone says, "Don't look," and your head turns before you can stop it. I knew there were words there. I knew they were about us. I knew if I read them, I would understand something. That was the bait. Caleb whispered. "Rule 7. I nodded. "Don't read it." "I'm not." But I was. Not fully. Not on purpose. My eyes dropped half an inch, and I caught the first word. Tell. I shut my eyes hard. Caleb swore under his breath. "You saw?" "One word." "What word?" "Don't ask." We tore the page out. My hand shook so badly that the paper ripped unevenly. Caleb opened the stove door. I shoved the page inside and watched the fire take it. The ink darkened before the paper curled. For 1 second, as it burned, the comment line became visible through the flame. I looked away. Caleb did too. We kept our backs to the stove until the page was ash. Then, because we had learned how to be employees inside a nightmare, I wrote it in the log. 2044 hours. Guest book entry appeared after lockup. Page removed and burned per Rule 7. I did not write the name. I did not write the word I had seen. Tell. At 11, the radio check came. Dispatch answered normally. Then, after the line cleared, Warren Bell's voice came through. I had only heard him once or twice at the auto parts store, but Caleb knew it right away. He stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. "Caleb," the radio said. "You still up there?" We did not answer. "Caleb Mercer," Warren said. "Full name. Do not transmit." Caleb stepped back from the desk as if the microphone might bite him. Warren's voice crackled with static. "I'm sorry, boys." The room seemed to lean in around us. "I should have told you," he said. "I thought it might leave you alone if you didn't know too much." The radio popped. Then Warren said, "Don't trust Pete." Caleb looked at me. I shook my head. Warren continued, "Pete isn't Pete after 11. Static swallowed the last word. Then dispatch came through, annoyed. "Copperline, please keep channel clear unless reporting emergency traffic." I stared at the radio. Dispatch had heard something. Or thought she had. I wanted to pick up the mic and ask if Warren Bell had just transmitted. I wanted to ask if Pete was safe, if Warren was alive, if any of this had happened before. But the caller had used Caleb's full name. The rule did not say the danger ended when the voice stopped. So I did not transmit. The next morning, the landline rang. Caleb and I were in the kitchen making instant oatmeal. The sound was so normal and loud that we both flinched. I answered on the third ring. It was Pete. "Road crew made progress," he said. "I might be able to get to the gate tomorrow afternoon if weather holds. You two okay?" I stared across the kitchen at Caleb. He shook his head once. Not because we were okay. Because he did not want me to tell Pete. I said, "We're fine." Pete did not respond right away. Then he said, "Anything in the log?" "Normal stuff." "You had any guest book activity?" My hand tightened on the phone. "Why?" Answered the question. "Yes." "What name?" I almost told him. Then the radio voice from the night before came back to me. "Don't trust Pete." I did not know if that had been Warren. I did not know if the thing wanted us to distrust the one person who might help us. I did not know if Pete was a tired park employee trying to keep two idiots alive. That was the genius of it. It did not have to lie well. It only had to make us doubt. I said, "I didn't read it." Pete's voice changed. "You had to read the name to tear out the page." "No, I mean I didn't read below it." "What name, Evan?" He used my first name. Not my full name. Still, hearing it made my skin crawl. I said, "Warren Bell." Pete was silent. "Pete?" he said. "Is Caleb with you?" "Yes." "Put me on speaker." I did. Caleb came closer, arms folded tight. Pete said, "Listen carefully. If Warren's name shows up again, burn the page faster. Don't wait. Don't talk about him after dark." Caleb leaned toward the phone. "Is Warren dead?" Pete did not answer. "Is he?" Caleb demanded. Pete sighed. "Warren died last winter." I looked at Caleb. His face went blank. "No," Caleb said. "I'm sorry. He was in the store in September." "No, he wasn't." Caleb laughed once. It was not a real laugh. "He came in for wiper blades. He told me about the job. Warren died at Copperline last February," Pete said. "Heart attack, officially. I found him outside the east tree line." Caleb backed away from the phone. Pete kept talking. "I don't know who came into your store. I don't know how it got you two up there. But if Warren's name is in that book, it has started using him again." I could barely speak. "Again?" The line crackled. Pete said, "I'm coming tomorrow." Then the line cut out. Caleb sat down at the kitchen table. I did not know what to say. There are moments when the mind protects itself by focusing on small things. I remember the smell of oatmeal burning in the pot. I remember the phone cord twisted around my wrist. I remember a little crescent of snow stuck to Caleb's boot, melting on the floor. Finally he said, "I talked to him." "I know." "At the store." "I know." "He knew about Mom." I looked at him. Caleb's eyes were fixed on the table. "He asked how she was?" "I thought you told him. He said the job would be good for us. Quiet. Easy money. The words hung in the kitchen. Quiet. Easy money. I wanted to blame Caleb. Some ugly part of me did for a second. He had brought us there. He had trusted Warren, or whatever had looked like Warren. But that thought died almost immediately. I would have taken the job too. I had taken the job. We were both there because the bait had been shaped like help. That day was the longest of my life. Pete said he was coming tomorrow. That should have made it easier. It did not. Tomorrow was not real at Coppeline. Only the next rule was real. The next 15 minutes. The next radio check. The next door. Caleb became obsessed with the guest book. He did not open it, but he kept looking at it from across the room. "What do you think the line said?" he asked around noon. "Doesn't matter. It started with tell, right?" I looked at him sharply. He had not asked before. I had not told him. "How did you know that?" "You said it." "No, I didn't." He frowned. "You did." "I didn't." He rubbed his face. "Then maybe I saw it." "You were across the room." "I don't know, Evan." We left it there. At 6 we locked the doors. The snow had stopped, and sunset came clear and cold. The mountains beyond the trees turned purple. The station looked almost beautiful again, which made me angry. It had no right to look peaceful. When I checked the front door, there was snow packed against it from the inside. I stared at it for several seconds before I understood. The door was closed and bolted. We were inside. There should not have been snow on the floor at all. But a wedge of white snow pressed against the bottom of the door, piled inward as if a drift had blown through from the wrong side. Rule 1. If any door has snow packed against it from the inside, do not clear it after dark. Caleb came up behind me. "Oh, come on," he whispered. The snow looked fresh. Fine powder, sparkling under the porch light that came through the window. It was not melting, even though the room was warm. I backed away. "We leave it. That's the front door. We use the kitchen in the morning. What if Pete comes tonight?" He said tomorrow. "What if he gets here early? We don't clear it after dark." Caleb looked at the snow like it had insulted him personally. Then he stepped back. "Fine." We put a chair in front of the door, not because that would stop anything, but because human beings like barriers. At 7, dispatch answered the radio check. "No issues," I said. That was a lie, but I did not know how to report snow coming from inside a door without sounding like I needed evacuation for a different reason. After the check, Caleb and I ate dinner in the office. We did not use the public room. Neither of us wanted to sit near the guest book. At 8:15, camera 4 updated. Empty tree line. At 8:30, empty. At 8:45, empty. At 9 o'clock, the public room camera showed 5 chairs at the table. We were in the office. We had not heard anything move. Caleb looked at me, and I could see the same calculation in his face. Rule 3 said if you see 5, move the extra chair to the mudroom without speaking. It did not say you could wait until morning. It did not say unless another rule was already happening. So we went. The 5th chair was the same white one from before. It sat on the far side of the table, back to the guest book. We did not speak. We each took a side. As we lifted it, the guest book opened. The pages moved quickly, flipping from front to back as if in a strong wind. There was no wind. The room was still. Caleb's grip tightened. I shook my head once. "Do not speak." The pages stopped. The pen lifted. I looked away, but not fast enough to miss the first letters forming on the page. Cale. My brother's name. Caleb saw it too. His mouth opened. I kicked his boot. Hard. He closed his mouth. We carried the chair to the mudroom. The snow against the front door made a soft settling sound as we passed it, like someone outside had leaned their weight against the other side. We put the chair down. The lights flickered. When we returned to the public room, the guest book was closed. Caleb walked straight past me toward it. I grabbed his arm. He pulled away. My name, he whispered. Rule 7. It's my name. After 6. We burn it. He looked at me with a kind of anger I had not seen since we were teenagers. What if it says something important? That's why it's there. You don't know that. Yes, I do. No, you don't. You're guessing like everyone else. He reached for the book. I grabbed him again, harder this time. He shoved me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough that I hit the counter with my hip. Don't, I said. He stood over the book, breathing fast. I could see the war in him. Fear, anger, guilt, curiosity. The thought that maybe the line below his name would explain why Warren had come to him. Maybe it would tell him how to stop it. Maybe it would say something about Mom. Maybe it would give us one useful answer after days of being treated like mice in a box. I understood the temptation. That did not make it safe. Caleb, I said quietly, if you open that, I will drag you away from it. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he might hit me. Then something knocked from the crawlspace hatch. 3 polite taps. Caleb turned toward the kitchen. The guest book slid open by itself. The pen moved. I could not see the page from where I stood. Caleb could. His face changed. Not fear. Recognition. He whispered, Dad? I moved before I thought. I grabbed the guest book, ripped out the open page without looking, and shoved it into the stove. Caleb lunged for me. The page caught fire. He stopped with both hands on my shoulders. In the flame, I heard a sound like someone sighing through a mouthful of ash. Then the page was gone. Caleb let go of me. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The crawlspace knocked again. Once. I went to the kitchen, knocked back once, and left. I did it alone. That was our next mistake. We were so shaken by the guest book that we forgot how strict the rules were about doing things together when they said together. Rule 6 did not say both caretakers. It only said knock back once. So I went alone. At the time, that seemed fine. Later, I wondered whether the thing had been waiting for exactly that kind of technical mistake. Not a broken rule. Not exactly. Just a gap. When I came back from the kitchen, Caleb was gone. The public room was empty. The office was empty. The bathroom door stood open. I found him in the hall outside room 3. He was staring at the closed door. The line of light under it was still there. The lamp was on. What are you doing? I whispered. He did not answer. Caleb. He blinked. Then he looked at me like he had just woken up. I heard Mom, he said. No, you didn't. I heard her in there. She's not here. I know that. But he did not sound like he knew it. We went to bed after that, though neither of us slept. In the morning, the snow against the front door was gone. No water on the floor. No damp wood. Nothing. Outside, the snow on the porch was smooth and undisturbed. No footprints. No drift against the door. It was as if the snow had never existed except on our side. Pete called at 10:15. I'm heading up, he said. Might take a few hours. You can get through? Snowcat can. Weather's holding. I looked at Caleb, who sat on his bed with his boots on and his jacket zipped. He had packed his bag before breakfast. Good, I said. Pete said. Listen to me. Until I get there, do not relax. We're not. No matter what you hear, no matter what you see, follow the rules exactly. It gets pushy when people are close to leaving. That sentence landed badly. What do you mean close to leaving? Pete was quiet. Then he said, most things don't like being noticed and then losing what noticed them. The line crackled. I asked, what happened to the caretaker who didn't come down? Pete did not answer. Pete. His partner came out alone, Pete said. Told us the other one walked into the trees at dawn. Cameras showed both of them inside until sunrise. We never found tracks. Why wasn't this place shut down? He laughed once, humorless. You ever try telling the federal government a building is haunted? I had no answer to that. He said, I'll call from the gate. The call ended. Caleb and I spent the day cleaning like people about to leave a rental. It was absurd, but we did it. We washed dishes, swept, packed food back into bins, checked the stove, and topped off the inside wood rack. I think both of us needed to act like departure was a normal thing that could happen if we behaved normally enough. At noon, I logged the weather. Temperature, 12 degrees. Wind calm. Snow stopped. Visibility clear. At 2 o'clock, camera 5 showed movement at the lower gate. I leaned close to the monitor. A dark shape stood on the road near the gate. Not the snowcat. A person. The image was grainy, half frozen by distance and bad signal, but I could see a figure standing beside the locked gate, facing uphill toward the station. Pete? Caleb asked. No vehicle. Maybe he walked up from the gate. 3 miles in this snow? The image updated at 2:15. The figure was closer to the camera. Not because it had walked uphill. Because it was standing directly in front of camera 5 now, face close to the lens. Warren Bell looked into the camera. I knew it was Warren because I had seen his old employee photo in the office. Gray beard, deep lines around the mouth, heavy brow. The face on the monitor was paler, and the eyes were wrong in a way I do not know how to describe except that they looked too aware of the camera. Caleb backed away. No, he said. The image froze. At 2:30, camera 5 went black. The radio clicked on. Copperline, this is Pete, a voice said. At the gate. Caleb and I stared at each other. It sounded like Pete. The voice said. Camera's iced over. I'm coming up slow. Sit tight. I reached for the microphone. Caleb grabbed my wrist. Radio rules, he whispered. It's not 7 or 11. We let it transmit into silence. Pete's voice came again. Evan, you there? First name. Not full. Caleb? Silence. Then, after a pause, Evan Mercer answered the radio. Full name. I pulled my hand away from the mic like it was hot. The voice sighed. Not angry. Disappointed. Fine, Pete said. Do it the hard way. The radio clicked off. Caleb sat down on the floor. I almost told him he did not need to yet. The rule about sitting on the office floor only applied to camera 4. But he looked so exhausted that I sat beside him. We waited until camera 5 returned. It did not. At 4:10, the landline rang. I did not answer. It rang 11 times, stopped, then started again. Caleb asked. Could be real Pete. Could be. What if he needs something? The phone kept ringing. We had no rule about the phone. That bothered me. There are only 2 reasons a place like Copperline would not have a phone rule. Either the phone was safe, or nobody had survived long enough to need one. On the 3rd round of ringing, I answered. I did not say anything. For a moment, I heard only wind. Then Pete's real voice said, "Evan?" I stayed silent. He said, "Good. Don't talk yet. If you can hear me, tap the receiver twice on the desk." I did. Tap, tap. Pete exhaled. "Good. I'm at the maintenance shed below the gate. Snowcat threw a track. I am not at the gate. I have not been on the radio. Do you understand?" I tapped twice. Caleb covered his face. Pete said, "I can't get to you before dark." I closed my eyes. "Listen," Pete said. "I know that's not what you want to hear. But you can make one more night. You follow the rules. You do not answer anything that sounds like me. I'll start again at first light." I wanted to speak. I wanted to tell him we could not do one more night. I wanted to tell him Caleb was coming apart. I wanted him to say there was another way. Pete seemed to know. "I'm sorry," he said. "I really am." Then the line went dead. I put the receiver down. Caleb stared at me. "He's not coming," I said. "Not tonight." For a second, I thought Caleb might scream. Instead, he laughed. It was soft and empty. "One more night," he said. "Sure." I did not know then how important those words would become. At 5:30, the station began to change. Not in a way I could prove. The rooms looked the same. The lights stayed on. The stove burned. The cameras worked except for camera 5. But the place felt occupied. That is the only word. Occupied. Like people had filled the rooms just outside our sight. Like if I turned too quickly, I would catch someone stepping behind a doorway. The air held the pressure of held breath. Caleb and I locked all 3 doors at 5:50. No snow inside any of them. We checked the public room table. 4 chairs. We checked room 3. Lamp on. Mirror covered. We checked the guest book. Closed. Then we sat in the office and waited for 6. At exactly 6 o'clock, every clock in the station stopped. The office wall clock. The small alarm clock in our bedroom. The digital clock on the microwave. Even Caleb's phone, though it had no service, froze at 6 o'clock. The radio display still glowed green. The camera monitor still updated, but the timestamp stuck at 1800 hours. There was no rule about the clocks. Caleb whispered. "That's new," I said. "Don't give it credit." He looked at me strangely. "What?" "Nothing." "What?" He shook his head. "You sounded like Dad." That hit me harder than it should have. Our father had been calm in emergencies. Too calm sometimes. When a pipe burst in our childhood house, he had walked downstairs, looked at water pouring through the ceiling, and said, "Don't give it credit," like the pipe had done something on purpose. I had not thought about that phrase in years. At 7, the radio clicked. The clock still said 6. The radio schedule said 7 by our bodies, by habit, by the dark outside. I checked my watch, an old analog one my father had given me. It still worked. 7 o'clock. I took the mic. "Copperline station to dispatch, radio check?" Static. No answer. I tried again. "Copperline station to dispatch, radio check?" Nothing. Caleb leaned in. The radio speaker hissed. Then a woman's voice said, "Dispatch to Copperline, reading you." It was the normal dispatcher. I let out a breath. "Copperline on site. No emergency traffic. Camera 5 down. Weather clear. Awaiting maintenance tomorrow." There was a pause. Then dispatch said, "Copy, Evan Mercer." I froze. Caleb whispered, "No. The voice continued, still calm, still official. Confirm Caleb Mercer is with you. I did not answer. The radio hissed. Copperline, she said. Confirm both caretakers are alive. Caleb backed away from the desk. I set the mic down gently. The dispatcher's voice changed. Not much. Just enough. Evan, she said. Your mother called. I closed my eyes. She said it's important? I did not answer. She said Caleb shouldn't have come. The radio popped. Then my mother's voice filled the office. Evan, honey? Caleb said. No. I stared at the microphone. My mother sounded confused. Tired. Far away. Evan, I can't reach Caleb. Is he there? Caleb shook his head over and over. Please pick up, she said. I need to hear you. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was exactly the kind of voicemail she would leave if she were worried and trying not to worry us. The thing at Copperline understood ordinary pain better than any monster should. I put both hands under my legs so I would not reach for the mic. My mother said, Your father came by. Caleb sobbed once. He said the boys were cold. The radio went dead. For a while, we sat in silence. Then, from the public room, a chair scraped across the floor. Rule 3. Caleb stood slowly. I can't do this, he said. We have to. No, I mean I can't keep letting it talk with them. It's not them. You don't know that. Yes, I do. How? Because they wouldn't do this to us. He stared at me. That finally got through. He nodded once. We went to the public room. There were 5 chairs at the table. The extra was not the white chair this time. It was our father's recliner. That is impossible, of course. His recliner had been thrown away years before. It had been brown corduroy with one torn arm and a lever that stuck halfway. He used to fall asleep in it watching baseball, one foot bare, one sock still on. I had not thought about the exact shape of that chair in a long time. But there it was at the public room table, too big and soft and wrong among the wooden chairs. Caleb stopped breathing for a second. I almost spoke. The rules said move the extra chair to the mudroom without speaking. It did not say the extra chair would be easy to lift. I pointed. Caleb shook his head. I pointed again, harder. His eyes filled with tears, but he came around to the other side. We lifted. It was heavy. Heavier than a recliner should be. The upholstery felt warm under my hands, as if someone had just been sitting in it. As we dragged it toward the mudroom, the footrest snapped open. Something fell out from between the cushion and the arm. A small green lighter. My father's lighter. Caleb saw it hit the floor. His face broke. He bent toward it. I kicked it under the radiator. He glared at me with pure hatred for 1 second, but he kept holding the chair. We moved it to the mudroom. When we let go, the recliner settled with a soft sigh. From inside the cushions, my father's voice said, Thanks, boys. Caleb ran out of the mudroom. I followed. Behind us, the door to room 3 clicked shut. The line of light under it went dark. Rule 4. Both caretakers go together. Turn it on. Do not look at the mirror. Caleb stood in the hall, shaking. No, he said. We have to. No. Caleb. No. Not that room. The dark gap under room 3 seemed wider than before. Something moved behind the door. Slow. A shift of weight. We have to, I said again. He wiped his nose with his sleeve like a child. Okay. We went together. I opened the door. The room was black. Not just unlit. black in a way that seemed to push against the hallway light. The smell of stale air was stronger now, mixed with something cold and metallic. I kept my flashlight low. The beam landed on the floorboards. 1 step. 2. Caleb stayed behind me, one hand gripping the back of my jacket. The lamp was on the table. I reached for it. Before I touched the switch, someone spoke from the mirror. Evan. Not loud. Not a voice I recognized. Just my name, spoken from behind the towel. Caleb's hand tightened. The towel moved. The mirror was covered, but I could see its shape under the fabric. Rectangular. Dark edges. The towel clung to it like something damp. Evan Mercer, the mirror said. Full name. Not the radio, but I understood the shape of the trap. I turned on the lamp. For half a second before the light filled the room, the flashlight beam caught the bed. There were 2 shapes under the blanket. One long. One smaller. Like an adult lying beside a child. Then the lamp came on. The bed was flat. The towel over the mirror stopped moving. We backed out. As Caleb pulled the door closed, the towel slipped from the mirror. I saw his eyes go to it. I grabbed his face and turned it toward me. Don't, I said. He stared at me, furious and terrified. The mirror hit the floor inside the room with a heavy crack. The lamp stayed on. We shut the door. Caleb collapsed in the hall. I sat beside him. That was when Camera 4 updated. We heard the monitor click in the office. Neither of us moved. Then the office chair creaked by itself. I looked down the hall. From where I sat, I could see part of the monitor. Camera 4 showed me outside. Not Caleb. Me. I was standing at the east tree line, facing the camera. The image was grainy, but there was no mistaking it. My jacket. My height. My face. I saw my mouth open in the frozen image, like I had been caught mid-sentence. Office floor, I said. Caleb did not move. I grabbed his arm and pulled. We stumbled into the office and sat on the floor. The clock still said 6 o'clock. The camera timestamp still said 1800 hours. We had no way to know when the next update would come except counting seconds. The office window was dark. I kept my eyes on the monitor. The image of me outside did not move. It could not. It was a still frame. That made it worse because my open mouth never closed. Caleb whispered, "What if it's not a picture?" "Don't. What if that's you? I'm here. What if you're not?" I turned to him. He was staring at me like he had only just considered it. "Caleb." His eyes moved over my face. "Say something only you know." "No." "Say it." "No." "That's exactly what it wants." He flinched. I softened my voice. "We don't prove ourselves to it." That sounded wise. It was not. It was fear wearing a useful coat. The window tapped. Once. Then the radio clicked. My voice came from the speaker. "Caleb." He closed his eyes. My voice said, "He's not your brother." I did not move. He read the line. It said. Caleb's eyes opened. I whispered, "I didn't." The radio voice continued, calm and reasonable. "He read it when you were in the bathroom. He knows why you were brought here." "Don't listen," I said. The voice on the radio laughed softly. It was my laugh. "Ask him what it said." Caleb turned toward me. "Don't," I said. The radio said, "Ask him about the word tell." Caleb's face changed. Because I had never told him. Not that I remembered. But somehow he knew. The thing had found the seam between us and put pressure there. Caleb, I said, look at the monitor. Wait for the update. Did you read it? No. Did you? No. The radio voice said. He knows Warren picked you. He knows Dad agreed. Caleb put his hands over his ears. I wanted to reach for him, but the rule said sit on the floor until the next update. It did not say do not comfort your brother. Still, I did not move. By then I had started to fear any action that was not strictly necessary. The window tapped again. Tap, 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 tap. This time, the final 2 taps came from under the floor. Tap, tap. The monitor clicked. Camera 4 updated. The east tree line was empty. Caleb stood immediately. Don't, I said, but the rule had passed. He walked out of the office. I followed. Caleb. He went to the public room and stood by the stove. The guest book lay open on the counter. A fresh page. A new name. Evan Mercer. Below it was a line of writing. I looked away so hard my neck hurt. Caleb did not. He read it. I know he read it because all the anger left his face. He became still. Too still. Caleb, I said. He did not answer. I moved toward the book, keeping my eyes on the floor, and tore out the page. He let me. I burned it in the stove. The whole time, Caleb stood there with that blank look. When the page was ash, he said, You weren't supposed to come. I felt my stomach drop. What? That's what it said. You read the line. He nodded. You broke the rule. I know. Why? He looked at me then. Because it was my name underneath. I did not understand. He pointed to the guest book. The line below your name, he said. It wasn't a comment. My mouth went dry. That was when Rule 7 changed meaning. We had thought it meant do not read the comment line written below the new entry. That was how guest books worked. Name on one line, comment below. We had assumed the danger was in the message. But the rule did not say comment. It said the line below it. The guest book was lined paper. Below my name, on the next line, was Caleb's name. Not a message. A list. A sequence. I tried to understand what that meant. Caleb already had. It's not telling us something, he said. It's taking attendance. The stove popped behind him. The public room camera ticked. Caleb looked toward the front door. We have to leave, Pete said, mourning. No. Now. We can't. We can. Caleb, listen to me. No. I'm done being checked off in that book. He walked toward the front door. I grabbed his arm. He shoved me harder this time. I hit the table, and one of the chairs fell over. Don't touch me, he said. I got between him and the door. After dark, doors stay locked. He pointed at the guest book. The rules are for it, Evan. Not for us. What does that mean? They keep us here. That thought had occurred to me too, but I had not let it form all the way. Rules can protect. Rules can also contain. A locked door keeps something out. It also keeps you in. I said, We don't know that. He laughed under his breath. We don't know anything. The landline rang. Both of us turned. It rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then the radio clicked on. Pete's voice said, Open the door. Caleb and I froze. The radio voice said, I'm on the porch. The front porch camera showed nothing. The radio continued. Snowcat's running. We have to go now. Camera 1 showed the empty porch. The road beyond it was blue with moonlight. No snowcat. No tracks. Caleb stared at the monitor. Not real. I said. He nodded slowly. Then the front porch door knocked. 3 hard knocks. Not crawlspace polite. Human. The radio said. Evan, open up. I looked at Caleb. He looked back. The voice did not use my full name. Please, it said. It's cold. That was my mother's voice again. From the front door now. Boys, she called through the wood. Please let me in. Caleb whispered. No. That gave me hope. Then she said, Caleb, honey, I brought your father. The porch camera flickered. For one frame, I saw 3 people standing outside the front door. My mother. My father. Warren Bell. Then the image went back to empty porch. Caleb backed away until he hit the wall. The landline rang again. The radio hissed. The crawlspace knocked. Room 3's door opened by itself, spilling warm lamplight into the hall. Then every light in the station went out except the lamp in room 3. The building went silent. No generator. No radio hum. No refrigerator. Just wind and the soft yellow line from room 3. Caleb whispered, Office. He was right. Cameras. Radio. Log. Rules. We needed the office. We moved together in the dark, hands brushing the wall. The office monitor still glowed on battery backup. 6 camera feeds, pale and grainy. Camera 1, empty porch. Camera 2, generator shed. Camera 3, woodpile. Camera 4, east tree line. Camera 5, black. Camera 6, public room. In camera 6, Caleb and I were sitting at the table. I stared. The real Caleb stood beside me. The monitors showed us in the public room, sitting across from each other. Heads lowered. Hands folded on the table. 4 chairs. No 5th. The timestamp still said 1800 hours. The image clicked. Camera 6 updated. The table was empty. Except for the guest book. Open. The pen began moving on the monitor. I looked away from the real counter, but the monitor held my eyes. The pen wrote 1 line. I could not read it on the small screen. Then another. Then another. Caleb said, Don't look. I shut my eyes. The radio clicked. Dispatch said, Copperline, confirm final count. I kept my eyes shut. The voice said, 2 caretakers listed. Static. 2 caretakers received. The front door handle rattled. Once. Then the kitchen door. Then the rear mudroom door. All 3, one after another, as if someone was walking around the building trying each entrance. Caleb whispered, What do we do? Wait until morning. How long? I looked at my watch. It had stopped at 6 o'clock. Everything had. We wait until light. The radio said, There won't be light. Neither of us answered. The next few hours are difficult to describe because time stopped behaving in a way I can put in order. We stayed mostly in the office. Sometimes the generator was running. Sometimes it was not. Sometimes the room was freezing, our breath visible. Sometimes it was so warm I sweated through my shirt. The cameras showed impossible things, but not constantly. That was important. If every feed had filled with monsters, maybe we would have broken quickly. Instead, most updates were normal. Porch empty. Shed empty. Woodpile. Trees. Black gate. Public room. Then one wrong detail. A hand on the porch railing. A 5th chair. A lamp glowing outside in the snow. My father's lighter sitting on the office desk. Caleb as a child standing at the woodpile in pajamas. Our mother in room 3, though there was no camera there. Each time, we told ourselves not to react. Each time, the rules narrowed what we were allowed to do. At some point, the guest book appeared on the office desk. Neither of us saw it arrive. It was just there, closed, leather-covered, damp with melted snow. Caleb reached for it. I slapped his hand away. He did not fight me that time. The crawlspace knocked for almost an hour. Sometimes from the kitchen. Sometimes from under the office floor. Sometimes from inside the wall behind my head. We knocked back only when it came from the kitchen hatch. That was what the rules said. I do not know if that was right. I do not know if ignoring the other knocks helped or hurt. At one point, room 3 lamp went out again. We went together. We turned it on. The mirror was back on the dresser, covered by the towel. Neither of us looked. As we left, the thing in the mirror spoke in Caleb's voice and said, "He already left." I held my brother's wrist until we were back in the hall. At another point, the radio came on with my own voice reciting the rules. Not all of them. Just one. "Do not read the line below it," my voice said. Over and over. "Do not read the line below it." Then softer. "Do not read the line below it because it reads you back." I do not know if that was true. I try not to think about it. The worst part came near what I think was 3 in the morning. Caleb had fallen into a half-sleep on the office floor. I sat beside him, watching the monitor. My eyes burned. My mouth tasted like metal. The office lamp flickered weakly, though I did not remember it coming back on. Camera 4 updated. It showed the east tree line. A figure stood there. Not me. Not Caleb. A park ranger. He wore an old green uniform and a flat hat dusted with snow. His back was to the camera. He faced the trees. Then, slowly, he turned. It was Pete. Not Radio Pete. Not fake Pete. At least, I did not think so. He held both hands up near his chest, palms out, like he wanted the camera to see he was not holding anything. His mouth moved. The camera had no audio. He pointed toward the public room. Then toward the office. Then he made a cutting gesture across his throat. I stared, trying to understand. Caleb woke and followed my gaze. On the monitor, Pete pointed again. Public room. Office. Throat. "What does that mean?" Caleb whispered. "I don't know." Pete looked over his shoulder toward the trees. Then he turned back to the camera and mouthed something slowly. I tried to read his lips. "Do. Not." At that moment, the radio clicked on. Pete's voice came through, weak and full of static. "Do not burn the next page." I stared at the radio. Caleb whispered, "What?" The Pete on camera 4 shook his head violently. His mouth moved. "Do not," the radio voice said. "Evan, listen. The rules changed. Do not burn the next page. Full name. Do not transmit." But hearing the instruction was not the same as answering. There was no rule against listening. The Pete on camera 4 stepped closer to the lens. His face was desperate. He mouthed again. "Do not read." The radio said, "If Caleb's name appears, leave the page. It's the only way to hold him here." Caleb turned to me slowly. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," the radio said. "If you burn it, he goes where Warren went." Camera 4 flickered. Pete was closer now. Too close to the camera. His face filled the frame. His lips moved. "Do not open." Then the feed went black. The radio whispered, "One of you has to sign out." The guest book on the desk opened. The pen rolled toward Caleb. He looked at it. I grabbed the book. He grabbed it too. For a second, We held it between us like two children fighting over something stupid. Let go, I said. What if it's right? It used his full name. What if that rule is just to keep us from hearing? Caleb. What if every rule keeps us doing what it wants? That was the question that almost ended us. Because he might have been right. Rules can be written by survivors. Rules can also be written by the thing that survives. I did not know which was true. None of us did. I only knew what had happened when we followed them. We were still alive. I knew what happened when Caleb read the line. Everything got worse. That was enough. I pulled the book from him. The page was open. A name had appeared at the top. Caleb Mercer. My eyes dropped. I did not mean them to. The next line below it was blank. Not my name. Blank. Waiting. The pen lay between us. I understood then what the final choice was. The page did not just record visitors. It invited completion. Maybe if I wrote my name under his, it would take us both. Maybe if I burned it, it would take him. Maybe if I did nothing, the blank line would fill itself. Caleb understood too. He reached for the pen. No, I said. If I sign out, maybe you go home. That's not what it said. You don't know. I know it wants you to touch that pen. He looked so tired. So much older than 28. I can't hear them anymore, he said. The sentence broke something in me. Because I understood. He did not mean the radio. He did not mean the voices outside. He meant Mom, Dad, Warren, me, himself. The whole night had been full of voices wearing faces we loved. After enough hours, resisting them did not feel like bravery. It felt like refusing a drowning person's hand. I took the pen. Not to write. To throw it into the stove. That was my intention. But the moment my fingers closed around it, the office changed. I was not in the office anymore. I was standing outside at the east tree line. The cold hit me so hard I could not breathe. The station sat across the meadow, warm yellow light in its windows. Snow lay smooth between me and the porch. The sky was clear and full of stars. In the office window, I could see Caleb sitting on the floor. Beside him sat another me. It looked exactly like me. It had one hand on his shoulder. Caleb was crying. The other me leaned close to his ear. I tried to scream. No sound came out. Then I was back in the office with the pen in my hand. No time had passed. Caleb stared at me. What happened? I dropped the pen on the floor and crushed it under my boot. Blue ink spread across the boards like blood. The guest book slammed shut. Every door in the station opened at once. Front. Kitchen. Mudroom. Room 3. The cold rushed in from all sides. The office monitor went white. The radio screamed with static. Caleb grabbed me, and I grabbed him, and for a few seconds we were just two brothers in the dark holding on to each other while the building breathed around us. Then the front door closed. Then the kitchen door. Then the mudroom. Then room 3. One by one. The static stopped. The generator came back on. The clock started. My watch ticked once. Then again. It read 6:01. Outside the windows, the sky was turning gray. Dawn. We sat there until full light came through the office blinds. Either of us spoke. At 7:20, the real Pete arrived. We saw him first on camera 1, riding up on the snowcat, bundled in orange and green. He parked in front of the station and got out slowly, like a man approaching a trapped animal. He did not knock. He stood on the porch and called through the door. Evan? Caleb? It's Pete Harlan. I am alone. It is after sunrise. You can check the porch camera. We checked. He was alone. I opened the door. Pete looked at both of us, then passed us into the public room. How many chairs? He asked. 4, I said. Room 3 lamp? On. Guest book? I looked at Caleb. Caleb looked away. Pete stepped inside. The station smelled normal. Coffee, wood smoke, damp wool. Morning light made everything look smaller and less possible. Pete went straight to the office. The guest book was on the desk. Closed. No pen. The crushed pen stain was gone from the floor. Pete opened the book. I turned away automatically. He said, "It's blank." I looked. The page was blank. No Caleb Mercer. No Evan Mercer. Nothing. Pete closed it. For the first time since I had met him, he looked truly shaken. "What happened?" he asked. I laughed. I could not help it. After all his half-answers and warnings and rules, now he wanted the story. Caleb said, "We want to leave." Pete nodded. "Pack only what you need." We were out within 20 minutes. I did not look back when we left Copperline Station. That sounds like a line people say, but I mean it literally. I kept my eyes on the floor of the snowcat while Pete drove us down the road. Caleb sat beside me, wrapped in a blanket, staring straight ahead. At the gate, Pete stopped to adjust something on the track. For a moment I looked up. Camera 5 was mounted on a pole near the gate. Its lens had cracked. Behind it, in the snow, stood a white wooden chair. Pete saw me looking. "Don't," he said. So I didn't. We made it down the mountain. That should be the end. For a while, I told people it was. The official story was that the storm stressed us out. We were sleep-deprived. The old station had electrical problems. We decided the job was not worth it, and nobody argued. Pete signed off on the early end of contract. We were paid for the full 6 weeks, probably because the park did not want questions. Caleb and I drove back to Denver in silence. Mom cried when she saw us. She said we looked thin. Caleb hugged her for a long time, longer than normal. I watched him over her shoulder and tried to decide whether my brother had come all the way home. For the first few days I thought he had. He slept badly, but so did I. He jumped when phones rang, but so did I. He would not sit at any table with more chairs than people, but I understood that too. Trauma makes rules of its own. Then small things began to happen. A chair moved in Mom's kitchen. Not far. Just enough that no one could say for sure. The lamp in Caleb's room burned out 3 nights in a row. He covered the mirror with a towel and told Mom it helped him sleep. Once, while I was visiting, I heard 3 knocks from under the floor. Mom lived in a second-floor apartment. Caleb and I looked at each other across the room. Neither of us moved. Neither of us knocked back. After that, Caleb stopped talking about Copperline entirely. I tried to bring it up once, about a month later. We were sitting in my truck outside the clinic while Mom had blood work done. Snow was falling lightly. City snow. Dirty and soft, and nothing like the mountains. I said, "Do you ever think about the book?" He did not answer. "Caleb." He looked at me. For a second, I did not recognize his expression. Not because it was monstrous. I almost wish it had been. It was ordinary. Calm. Too calm. He said, "We burned the wrong pages." I felt my hands go cold on the steering wheel. "What does that mean?" He smiled a little. Not a happy smile. "I don't know yet." That was the last time I asked him directly. I am writing this now because yesterday I got a package with no return address. Inside was the yellow rules sheet from Copperline Station. The original one. Same folds. Same black marker. Same stain near the corner where Caleb had spilled coffee on our third morning. At first I thought Pete had sent it. Then I turned it over. There was a new rule written on the back. Number 8. It said, "If your brother says he came home with you, ask him what line he read. If he answers, do not sleep in the same house." I called Caleb as soon as I read it. He did not pick up. I called Mom. She said he was in the shower. Then she laughed a little and said, "He's been in there a long time, actually." I drove over. The bathroom door was open when I arrived. The shower was running, hot enough to fog the mirror. Caleb was not there. On the mirror, written in the steam, was my full name. Below it was a blank line. I wiped it away before Mom could see. I have not found Caleb yet. The police think he walked out. His truck is gone. His phone is off. There is no reason to suspect foul play. That is what they said. This morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring. Then a voicemail appeared. It was mostly static. Under it, very faintly, I heard my brother's voice. He said, "Ev, I'm at the gate." I deleted it. Then I checked the kitchen. There were 5 chairs around the table. And one of them was still wet with snow.